She thought she was going on a third date. Instead, she found herself locked in a bathroom, desperately calling for help. This isn't the plot of a thriller movie. It's a real Tinder date gone horribly wrong, and it could happen to anyone swiping right. A normal third date. Sarah pulled up to Jake's apartment complex, her stomach fluttering with a mix of excitement and nerves. This was their third date, and she felt like things were progressing nicely. Their first two meetups had been in public places, a coffee shop and then a bustling restaurant. Jake had seemed charming, attentive, and respectful. As she knocked on his door, Sarah reflected on how comfortable she'd become with Jake. He opened up, greeting her with a warm smile and a gentle hug. The apartment was clean and inviting, with soft music playing in the background. Sarah noticed a few framed photos on the wall, but didn't recognize any of the people in them. Jake led her to the living room, where he'd set up a cozy seating area. "Make yourself at home," he said, gesturing to the plush couch. Sarah sat down, sinking into the cushions. She noticed Jake watching her intently, but quickly dismissed the fleeting unease she felt. He was probably just nervous too, she reasoned. "Can I get you something to drink?" Jake asked, already heading towards the kitchen. "I've got a nice bottle of red wine I've been saving for a special occasion." Sarah hesitated for a moment. She usually preferred to stick to one drink on early dates, but the atmosphere felt so relaxed. "Sure, that sounds lovely," she replied with a smile. Jake returned with 2 glasses of deep red wine. As they sipped and chatted, Sarah found herself becoming more at ease. Jake was funny and engaging, asking her questions about her work and family. Yet, there were moments when his gaze seemed to linger a bit too long, or his laugh sounded slightly forced. Sarah pushed these thoughts aside, chalking them up to her own nerves. About halfway through her glass, Sarah began to feel strange. The room seemed to tilt slightly, and her thoughts became fuzzy around the edges. She blinked hard, trying to focus on Jake's words, but they sounded distant and muffled. A cold dread began to seep through her body as she recognized these symptoms. Years ago at a college party, Sarah had experienced something similar when someone slipped something into her drink. The realization hit her like a bucket of ice water. She'd been drugged. Again. Panic rose in her throat as she looked at Jake, seeing his friendly demeanor in a terrifying new light. Fighting to keep her voice steady, Sarah stood up on shaky legs. "I'm not feeling well," she managed to say. "I need to use the bathroom." Jake's expression flickered for a moment before settling back into concern. "Of course," he said, pointing down the hall. "First door on the left." Sarah stumbled towards the bathroom, her heart pounding. As soon as she was inside, she locked the door with trembling hands. Leaning against the cool tile wall, she tried to clear her head and figure out what to do next. She was trapped in a stranger's apartment, rapidly losing control of her body and mind. Sarah knew she needed help, and fast. Trapped and terrified. The bathroom door suddenly felt like the flimsiest of barriers. With her attacker mere feet away and her body betraying her, Sarah had to make a crucial decision. Would her next move be her salvation or seal her fate? Sarah's hands shook as she fumbled through her pockets, desperately searching for her phone. The room spun around her, making it difficult to focus. Her fingers felt numb and clumsy, barely able to grip the small device when she finally located it. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to steady her hands enough to unlock the screen. The effects of the drug were intensifying. Sarah's vision blurred and nausea washed over her in waves. She leaned against the cool tile wall, fighting to stay conscious. The bathroom seemed to shrink around her, amplifying her sense of panic. She knew she had to act fast before the drug completely incapacitated her. With trembling fingers, Sarah managed to dial 911. She held the phone close to her ear, her breath caught in her throat as she waited for someone to answer. When the dispatcher's voice came through, Sarah's words tumbled out in a hushed, urgent whisper. "I've been drugged," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm locked in the bathroom of a man's apartment. Please help me." The dispatcher asked for her location, but Sarah realized with horror that she didn't know the exact address. She described the apartment complex as best she could, praying it would be enough. As Sarah struggled to provide details, she heard footsteps approaching the bathroom door. Her heart nearly stopped. Thinking quickly, she flushed the toilet and turned on the faucet, masking the sound of her voice. She pretended to retch, buying precious seconds to finish the call. "He's outside the door," Sarah whispered to the dispatcher. "I can't talk anymore. Please hurry." She ended the call and quickly deleted it from her recent history, just as a knock sounded on the door. "Sarah, are you okay in there?" Jake's voice, once charming, now sent chills down her spine. "I'm not feeling well," Sarah called back, her voice strained. "Must be something I ate earlier. I'll be out in a minute." She silently prayed her act was convincing enough. Jake's footsteps retreated, but Sarah knew he wouldn't be gone for long. She slumped against the wall, fighting to stay alert. The room tilted and swayed around her, and she struggled to keep her eyes open. Sarah focused on her breathing, trying to calm her racing heart. Minutes stretched like hours as Sarah waited, every sound outside the door making her flinch. Just when she thought she couldn't hold on any longer, a new sound cut through the silence. Police sirens, growing louder as they approached. Sarah's heart leapt with a mixture of relief and fear. Help was coming, but would it arrive in time? The horrifying discovery. The police arrival marked Sarah's rescue, but it was only the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt her for years. What horrifying truth lay hidden in Jake's living room? And how close had Sarah come to becoming his victim? Sirens blared as police vehicles screeched to a halt outside the apartment complex. Officers swiftly entered the building, their footsteps echoing in the hallway. They pounded on Jake's door, announcing their presence. When there was no immediate response, they forced entry, guns drawn. Inside, they found Jake standing in the living room, looking confused and agitated. He was quickly subdued and handcuffed, while other officers rushed to the bathroom. They called out to Sarah, who weakly responded. The door was unlocked, and Sarah was found slumped against the wall, barely conscious. Paramedics arrived to tend to Sarah, carefully assessing her condition. As they prepared to move her, one of the officers made a startling discovery in the living room. He called for his colleagues, his voice tight with shock. The scene was so disturbing that when they carried Sarah out, an officer placed a bag over her head to shield her from the sight. The living room had been transformed into a makeshift torture chamber. Ropes and restraints were laid out on the coffee table. A camera was set up on a tripod, its lens pointed at a cleared space on the floor. Most chilling of all, a collection of knives and other sharp implements were neatly arranged nearby. As officers processed the scene, they uncovered more evidence of Jake's premeditation. Hidden in a closet, they found a stash of drugs commonly used to incapacitate victims. There were also photographs of other women, some appearing to be in various states of distress or unconsciousness. Jake's demeanor shifted dramatically as he was arrested. His initial confusion gave way to a cold, detached expression. He remained silent as officers read him his rights, his eyes darting around the room as if calculating his options. This reaction suggested he was unprepared for the consequences of his actions, a trait often seen in offenders who believe they can manipulate situations without facing repercussions. At the hospital, Sarah gradually regained full consciousness. As the effects of the drug wore off, the gravity of her situation became clear. Detectives gently informed her of what they had found in Jake's apartment. Sarah was overwhelmed with a mix of horror at what could have happened and profound relief at her narrow escape. The investigation began immediately. Forensic teams combed through Jake's apartment, collecting evidence and documenting the scene. Detectives started the process of identifying the women in the photographs, fearing that Jake might have had other victims. As news of Jake's arrest spread, the community was shaken. The idea that such a predator had been hiding in plain sight, using a popular dating app to lure victims, sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. For Sarah, the ordeal was far from over. She faced a long road of recovery, both physically and emotionally, as she grappled with the trauma of her experience and the knowledge of what she had narrowly avoided. Unraveling the deception. What if the real danger of online dating isn't the obvious creep, but the charming match who seems too good to be true? Jake's case revealed a disturbing truth about how predators exploit our trust, and why even the most cautious daters can fall victim. As investigators dug into Jake's history, a chilling pattern emerged. They discovered multiple complaints filed against him in different cities, all following a similar modus operandi. Jake had been using various dating apps to meet women, carefully crafting his image as the perfect gentleman. He would charm his victims over several dates, gradually building trust before attempting to isolate and harm them. Several women came forward after hearing about Sarah's ordeal, sharing their own experiences with Jake. Many had narrowly escaped situations similar to Sarah's, while others had been too afraid or ashamed to report their encounters earlier. These testimonies painted a picture of a calculated predator who had honed his tactics over time. The investigation exposed subtle red flags that had been overlooked in Jake's behavior. He often pushed for meetings in private settings, citing romantic intentions. His compliments, while initially flattering, were excessive and designed to create a false sense of intimacy. Jake frequently tested boundaries, using small transgressions to gauge his victims' reactions and willingness to accommodate him. Experts noted how Jake had exploited the very nature of online dating to manipulate his victims. Dating apps provided him with a constant stream of potential targets and the ability to craft an appealing persona. The limited information available on user profiles made it difficult for victims to verify Jake's claims or background. The case highlighted the challenges of vetting potential dates in the digital age. Many users expressed frustration with the lack of robust verification processes on dating platforms. While some apps had implemented safety features, these often fell short in identifying sophisticated predators like Jake who could easily create new profiles or move to different platforms. Perhaps most disturbing was how Jake had weaponized social norms and expectations of politeness. Victims repeatedly reported feeling obligated to be accommodating or give Jake the benefit of the doubt, even when they felt uncomfortable. This exploitation of ingrained social behaviors made it harder for women to act on their instincts or extract themselves from potentially dangerous situations. As the full extent of Jake's crimes came to light, it forced a wider conversation about safety in online dating. Users grappled with the fine line between cautious vetting and paranoia. How could one stay safe without becoming overly suspicious of every match? The case served as a stark reminder that while online dating could lead to genuine connections, it also required constant vigilance and a willingness to prioritize personal safety over social niceties. Sarah's harrowing experience serves as a stark reminder of the risks inherent in online dating. While apps can lead to genuine connections, they also provide opportunities for predators to exploit trust. It's crucial to recognize potential warning signs. Excessive compliments, pushing for private meetings too soon, and testing boundaries are all red flags. Always prioritize your safety over politeness or social expectations. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Take proactive steps to protect yourself. Inform a friend or family member about your dating plans, including who you're meeting and where. Consider using dating apps with built-in safety features like background checks or emergency contact options. For initial meetings, stick to public places where you feel comfortable and in control. Remember, being cautious doesn't mean being paranoid. By staying informed and prioritizing your well-being, you can navigate the world of online dating more safely and confidently.